Got a Daily Mail article here. Looks like Reuters picked it up. Nikki Schwab. Trump says he directed $3,400 stimulus checks for Americans, but blames Democrats for holding it up. Politics, baby. President Donald Trump said on Friday that he is readying $3,400 checks to go out to American families, but blamed Democrats for holding up a deal in talks that broke down a week ago. I mentioned this in the past, remember, when there was that complaint from Pelosi about Trump's signature being on the checks or on the letter you would get. I didn't get a check directly, so I don't know if they were on the check itself, but she complained about his signature being involved in it somehow. I've directed the Secretary of the Treasury, that's Mnuchin, to get ready and send direct payments, $3,400 for a family of 4, to all Americans. Democrats are holding this up, Trump said, echoing an earlier tweet. He said he wouldn't sit down with the Democrats personally because they continued to want federal dollars to go to state and city budgets that have been cash-strapped due to the pandemic, and as I said before, they were cash-strapped prior to the pandemic, some of them, due to financial mismanagement. Accountability with these funds. Oh, let's just throw a ton of money at the problem. Hopefully there's a lot of accountability if money starts getting doled out. But you know how that goes with the government and money. Because they want $1 trillion to go to their friends who are doing bad jobs running cities and states. And they're doing very badly, he said at the White House briefing. Did he say that? Well, it's actually not that bad. Some of the time, he kind of rambles and his tweets get a little hard to read when in print. I will say this, and I mentioned this before, if you have a state that's locked itself down and continues to maintain its lockdown status, therefore continuing to drive itself further and further into debt, that's something that I would give a lot of pushback on in terms of supporting. Now, we're talking about the financial side. Obviously, there's the human toll as well. I get that. But if states are doing this to themselves, given the rates of mortality that we are now getting a clearer picture of, you have to wonder why everyone else should be responsible for bailing out these states that choose to do these kinds of things to themselves. Most of our country is running very well, the president continued. But when you look at Chicago, when you look at what's going on in Illinois and New York and other places, both economically and in other ways, it's horrible. You look at Oregon, he added. Earlier in his remarks, Trump said he would send money to state and local governments to save jobs of our great police, our firefighters, our first responders, and teachers. Okay, that's cool. I'm with that. It's all ready to go. Democrats are holding it up, Trump said again. Instead of sitting down with Democratic leaders in the Congress, the president has sent Secretary Steve Mnuchin and White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows to Capitol Hill for negotiations. Meadows was a former Republican House member from North Carolina. The Republican-led Senate and Democratic-controlled House of Representatives went into an informal recess after last week's negotiations ended with the parties $2 trillion apart. However, the leaders of both parties said they could recall their members with 24 hours notice if a deal emerged. At a Friday news conference, Trump said he was prepared to provide Americans with direct payments, as well as rental assistance and money for small businesses, state and local government. I'm waiting for the Democrats to approve it, the president said. Democrats are holding that up, right? So there is money in there for small business, state and local governments. Obviously, the dollar figure is the holdup. More, right? Aides to House Speaker Pelosi and Senate Democratic leader Schumer were not immediately available for comment. Trump's move came a day after he said he was blocking talks to prevent Democrats from providing more money for the Postal Service or state and local election officials struggling to prepare for the November 3rd elections during a pandemic. On Friday, he signaled that he might approve federal funds for the Postal Service. All right, well, by the time you see this video, he will probably have changed his mind on that or tweeted something contrary to it. Oh, Trump, gotta love him. On Saturday, Trump signed a series of executive measures on issues including unemployment benefits that economists dismissed as too limited to have a significant effect on an economy hammered by the pandemic. They have yet to be carried out. And that's what I said in my video when I was talking about his proposal before. that even if he proposed a $600 boost again, they would have said, oh, why not 800? Why not 1,000? And these are the things they talk about, kind of entitlements. This isn't necessarily entitlement, but it goes to government spending, and where we rarely have cuts to offset things like tax cuts, why there's rarely cuts to entitlements or programs. It's because once people get used to money, then you have that problem taking money out of their hand because they start to expect it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens if this thing gets approved and say they extend everything with the boost out until January. And say Trump wins. Let's say he's sitting there waiting for January 21st. And the boost is running out. What are Democrats going to do? Let's say Democrats keep control of Congress and maybe they gain the Senate or not. What are they going to do? Are they going to sit there and rail against the president? Oh, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. We must extend the $600 boost for another 3 months, another 4, 5, 6 months. I mean, somebody was talking about this the other day in terms of college football. And I'll make this quick, and then we'll read another paragraph or two and be done with this. But some college conferences are canceling their football seasons, while others are talking about potentially moving those to the spring. Somebody was saying, okay, well, how are you good with playing football in March, April, May, for instance, but you're not good with playing football in September, October, November, December? What's going to change? It's not like this thing's magically going to go away. And you know how the media is about this. Sowing division. So how is it going to be any different several months from now for this? That's my point. Several months down the road, say they extend it to January, we're going to hear the same thing in January. The $2 trillion chasm between the Democrats' $3 trillion proposal and the Republicans' $1 trillion offer includes wide gaps in funding for schools, that aid to state and local governments, and unemployment pay. An impasse over $600 a week in enhanced unemployment benefits, which expired on July 31st, kept financial markets on edge as the Commerce Department reported weaker than expected July retail sales growth due to the spiraling pandemic and the end of enhanced jobless payments. Open back up. The unemployment payments have helped buttress consumer spending, according to the Federal Reserve officials and the economists. No shit. People are getting paid to sit home and do nothing. They're getting paid to protest in some cases. Of course they're going to go out and spend that money. Come on now. But yet we have this great looming problem, like I've talked about in other videos. I always tell us 40 million people are facing eviction. They're going to be homeless in the streets and COVID and all this. Well, if they're out there spending this money, they must be doing all right. Pay the rent first. Trump tried to act alone on Saturday with a memorandum proposing an additional $300 per week in unemployment, with states paying claimants another $100 per week. Though economists question the effectiveness of the measure. I'll archive this, you can go ahead and finish this up. They talk about CV and the deaths, whatever. I'm surprised they didn't talk about George Floyd in this article somewhere. Ohio, I heard, was one of the states that was jumping on board with this. California's crying and moaning because that's what they do. Oh, we don't have the minis. We don't got the minis. Same thing with New York, right? Oh, I get it in terms of the $100, but think about it this way. People are getting another $1,200, even with Trump's plan, even if these states don't chip in, they'd be getting an additional $1,200 per month, at the very least, in addition to their state benefits, of course. But the point of unemployment isn't to get you rich, and it's not even to help you buttress consumer spending. It's to help you get through it. And I know, I get it. The governments are doing this. Exactly. The states' governments are doing this. The state governments that are costing people jobs by remaining locked down. Again, I get the human toll versus the financial thing. But the state governments that are creating these issues and creating these issues for themselves, why should the feds be expected to bail them out? I don't know. I have no answer. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. I'm done. Take it easy. All the best.